You might not need the study aid if you've already received one, or already grabbed one from off of the Blackboard site, that's fine. But this is just in case you didn't, so that you know what the next test is going to cover. All right, guys, so people were in a panic about the test, and of course the syllabus says we're supposed to have a test today, but we haven't finished our lectures, so it makes it kind of hard for us to have a test. So what we're doing is I've moved the test, instead of having it here as our classroom time, I've moved it online. So you can log into Blackboard and you can take the test. It should be open starting at 5 o'clock today, and it will be open all the way through next Wednesday at midnight. So you've got a week to complete this test online. It will be open book, and I've set it up so that you have 2 hours to complete this test. There should be no excuse for not doing well on this exam. So please take advantage of my kindness here, and use this to improve your scores as best you can, okay? Again, it's open notebook, and Adam has been so kind as to continue to do study guides for you guys. So if you look into the class share, you'll see that his notes are in there, and he's written up all kinds of stuff. So please take advantage of all the tools that you have available to you, including having access to your book and your notes during this exam. The one thing about it is, if you decide to wait till the last minute, the thing will close at midnight next Wednesday. So if you're in the middle of the exam and it's midnight, it's going to close. So don't wait till the last minute to take the exam. Get it done. You have plenty of time to do it, though, so it's as long as you've got access to a computer, and there should be time between now and a week from now for you to get that test taken on your own time. The other thing is your observation is also due. So you're going to be turning that in through Blackboard as well. Don't forget. So your observation is either on Art Deco or one of the styles. So I'll take Placket style, Art Deco. Those are the two styles that we talked about, or one of the isms. So you're going to find an ism. You're going to find a present day version using one of the styles or one of the isms. I'm just going to point out, just because I've got a shirt on right now that says Gatsby's Gala, and that's in the Art Deco style. I will not accept anything from the movie The Great Gatsby. Do not turn in something from the movie The Great Gatsby. Please do not, because the movie is about the 1920s and about the Art Deco era. They are not doing a present-day reinterpretation of Art Deco. They are reproducing the 1920s or 1930s. There's nothing fresh or new about it. I'm looking for you guys to find a modern-day interpretation. So just fair warning, don't do that.
This is my prom shirt. Or not my prom shirt, this is a shirt they handed out during prom.
That's fine. That's fine, but it's still replicating the 1920s Art Deco style. It's
Hey, but Leonardo DiCaprio on it?
just know that.
Just the logo.
Gotcha.
Just know that. So, yes,
So that's due next Wednesday?
that's also due next Wednesday. So a week from today, I expect those all to be on Blackboard. So next week, next Wednesday, your test will close out. That's it. That's it. That's as much as you're going to get a chance to take that test. So please, again, take advantage of what I'm doing for you guys to make it
Nothing
possible.
personal.
It's okay.
Nothing
All
personal.
right, we're cool? Yeah.
No, I know.
What's that?
No worries.
What day you submit observation?
On the observation, you're either doing a style, like Art Deco, or pocket style, object style, or you're doing one of the isms. So Cubism, Futurism, Dadaism, but a modern day interpretation of one of those isms or one of those styles.
What
I
day
think she
you
was asking when it's due.
It's also due on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, next Wednesday, due. Anybody else? Questions? Anybody else? Okay, we haven't done a question of the day in a while, so I'd like to do a question of the day, and then I'm going to jump into the lectures. So, anybody want to volunteer with question of the day? Go ahead, Taylor.
What famous piece of art did James Montgomery Clark create?
Okay, so somebody tell us about James Montgomery. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Adam.
he's the guy who did the like the recruitment posters, like the Uncle Sam. That's I think the one he's most known for. He's got some other works out there too.
Is that correct? Okay. Anything that you want to share with us extra about that James Montgomery flag poster, or anything else about that's associated with it? Adam, anything that you want to share?
What can you guys tell me about the Shield?
What's that?
What can you guys tell me about the Shield?
No, I'm talking about the James Montgomery flag
Oh,
poster.
sorry, okay, alright. That was the first thing popped in my head.
Okay. Anybody else? Throwing it out to the group. Anybody else want to score a point here? Jessica, what can you tell us about James Montgomery flag poster?
Oh, I was doing a question. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm still on James Montgomery flag. Anybody else? No, guys.
I have a funny one though.
This is how you get extra points.
Ugh.
All right, so the image that he used for it was based upon his own face. So that it was a self-portrait. It was based upon a poster that was done by the British that was of Lord Kitchener, who is the Secretary of War in Great Britain. So they had done it first. It was meant to emblemize nostalgic feelings. So even though it utilizes some elements of soft pocket object style, it's really a Victorian interpretation of it. Yes.
It had the full color palette or whatever. That's the one thing I just remember where he used the full
Red, white, and
primaries.
blue.
Yeah.
Red, white, and blue in that poster. What colors are those of United
Red,
States?
blue.
Yeah. Red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
So that's how you score extra points. Throw in something else. Who else has got a question of the day? Go ahead, Jessica.
I'm trying to figure out how to word this. LLHOQ, what was the joke for or reference of?
LLHOQ. Anybody remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just got a hot ass or something.
And who did that?
Oh, God.
Francis Pica? Oh,
What's
wait,
that?
wait. Francis Pica?
No.
Wait. Was it? Sorry, I got a lot of names on here.
Marcel Duchamp, and how did it translate out to "she's got a hot ass"?
In French, if you say it quickly, it sounds like that in French.
Yeah, the acronym when you say it in French, it turns into the words "elle a chaud de cool," which means she's got a hot ass. So, anybody else have anything to add to any of this?
I just wanted to add something funny because all the questions are usually serious.
Yep. Yes.
What is Dada?
What is Dada?
Yes.
Are you asking me or are you asking the class? Asking the class. Okay. Somebody want to answer that question for Jan? Jan gets a point. Jessica, go ahead. Tell us what Dada is.
Dada is futurism with a sense of humor.
That's my definition for it. But yeah, that's fine. What is futurism then?
Futurism is basically, give me one moment. Futurism is an ism that that visualizes motion. If I'm reading my stuff right. Yeah. Adopted machines, cities, and new technologies. They process motion and energy. Destruction of the old society, means and times, simulated positive and negative,
Okay.
and was kind of with fascism.
Right. So how is it different from Dadaism?
Dadaism basically took no sides, or they did take a side, but not like really. They decided to mock things that people took really seriously and make the world just have fun. That things aren't always what they seem and you should change what you look at them. And they never made their own art.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. Good points. So yeah, in some ways, I mean, they were mad. They were pissed, but they chose irony as a way to express their anger. So they just like constantly ridicule people, and this kind of high-mindedness that society was, especially artists, were going after. They felt like you guys are taking yourselves way too seriously, and to the point that they never actually created their own work. They always copied other people's or found images someplace else to capitalize on or incorporate into their work. Anybody else have any points or questions that they want to ask at this point in class? No? All right. So we're going to get into the last little bit of lecture here, and we're going to talk about really important here, because this is really the point where we see all of art that is in present day come together and design as we recognize it today. Kelly, would you mind hitting the lights for us?
Is it me or does that look like it's a naughty word?
Bahanas? No.
Like that's the way I pictured it in my head.
So, Bauhaus is actually a German word. Anybody know what this word means? It was in your book. Anybody know? You can start to dissect it. House is house, right? Bau means structured. So this is structured house. And this, the Bauhaus was actually another part of Germany trying to come together as being the most progressive, the most forward-thinking of all the countries in the world. Germany had gone through World War I, and we've just basically concluded World War I in talking about propaganda posters and all of that stuff. Germany was on the losing side of this battle. And they ended up signing something called the Treaty of Versailles. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But they ended up signing the Treaty of Versailles, and a lot of people in Germany were very upset that Germany had surrendered in this war. A lot of Germans felt like they had surrendered too soon, that they had more fight in them, that their cause was not really represented in the outcome of the war, and they felt like Germany really got trounced in this treaty that was signed. And so they were looking for a way to come back or to feel good about themselves. The Bauhaus was one of the answers to this problem, this kind of lagging self-esteem that Germany as a country was experiencing at this time. And so they gathered together the smartest minds in the art world and brought them together into one school that is called the Bauhaus. The person who created the Bauhaus, his name was Walter Gropius, and here's the first mark that was developed for the Bauhaus, designed by this guy Johannes Auerbach. You don't need to know that. But it just shows you what the first logo for the Bauhaus looked like. It didn't stay like that. But Walter Gropius was an architect. He was a trained architect. He had actually trained under Peter Behrens, and you remember him from the AEG identity system and all of that stuff. So he had been an apprentice to Peter Behrens, and so he studied, and he was there when Peter Behrens was building that AEG factory and developing all of these ideas of using grids and so on. So when Walter Gropius was hired to develop this new school after Germany lost the war, he brought with him a lot of those progressive ideas that he had learned through Peter Behrens. Now, initially the school was populated, it had actually been a school before he came in, and he reconfigured it. It had actually been a school for crafts, a craftsman school, so they were doing pottery and stuff like that. And a lot of the teachers that were at the school were expressionists in their style, because expressionism was really, really popular in Germany prior to World War I. The expressionism was to talk about the plight of the poor and the sick and all of that stuff, and they were trying to use expressionist typography and whatever to get across that idea. And some of those folks stuck around for a while. But when when Walter Gropius came around, he decided that he wanted to get rid of some of the stuff like this. This expressionistic kind of stuff, and he wanted to make it more simplified. And so he went back to some of the things that he had learned through Peter Behrens, including that grid system that Peter Behrens had instituted for all of the AEG posters. That was originally designed by somebody named J.L.M. Laurek, and it was a compositional grid structure that was developed around 1900 or so. It wasn't necessarily this grid that was the only thing that was taught, but it was the idea of having a grid or structure underneath the things that were being designed that Gropius was playing with, that he wanted to express to his students. He also liked the idea that there were these conceptual artists, these like expressionist artists that were part of the school, but he wanted to make it more so than that. He felt that all of the isms that were happening at that time were really a very significant change in the way that art was being created. And we certainly know that's true, because today, whenever we think about art, we're not thinking about them done in the way that they were done in the early 1800s. Now we think about art as very abstract, and there's a whole myriad of styles. So Walter Gropius recognized that the isms were really important to art at this time, and so he imported a lot of instructors to the school that were representatives of the different kinds of isms. So he had teachers that were Cubists, he had teachers that were Futurists, he had teachers that were Dadaists, Expressionists, Surrealists, the style artists, and even Russian constructivism. He introduced all of this stuff into the teaching of the school. But he also stressed to his students that he didn't want to favor one style over another, and he encouraged them to play around with the different isms in the work that they were doing. So some days they would work on things and do them in a Cubist way, and other days they would do them in a Dada way. And so he wanted the students to really find what their niche was, and to recognize that you don't have to use these from the standpoint of the political view, but more from the superficial stylistic view. And that's part of the reason why we talk about the difference between styles and isms, because he was bringing the isms to the school, but he was pushing them as style. And this is really why he felt that he was doing something very good for Germany, because he was taking away the political aspects of what was happening in the art world. And he felt like this could help Germany in many ways. He also reconfigured what the Bauhaus logo looked like, and this is the one that ended up sticking, and they used it everywhere. And you can see that the traits here are very much along the lines of what we have for de style. So de style qualities, but now we're not doing them in the de style meaning where, okay, this is a bowl of flowers. Now he's got kind of this figurative drawing, but he's creating it, recreating it, using some of the elements that we would see in the de style methods. Yeah.
Apple used to use that in their software back in the 80s and late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The old OS 9 one, you got a message box that used that. Sorry, random.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
You go right here.
So again, he hired a lot of different artists to bring in, and he was again playing with the isms, but not meant to do so in any kind of real political belief. So we can definitely see that there's some stuff here that looks like constructivism that's going on in this, but it's not really advocating the idea of communism. And this is really part of what Walter Gropius was doing. He felt like he was doing something really favorable for Germany at this time. The other thing about the school was that they had a very diverse kind of teaching system, a methodology that we still don't use yet. And it's kind of sad because it was a really progressive way of thinking. He had the students, not only like in the first formative years, they had to take the basic coursework, which is, again, how we do teaching. But once you got into the more specific kinds of studies, like if you were going to be an architecture student, the classes were taught not by one instructor, but by two instructors. So if you were an architecture student, you had instruction in that class by a trained architect who would show you about drafting skills and about planning and thinking about space and all of that stuff. But at the same time, you also had classes with a craftsman, somebody that knew how to build buildings. So you not only learned how to design the buildings, you learned how to build the buildings. Those students could actually weld. They could actually lay brick. They knew how to pour cement. They understood all of the ramifications of actually building a building because they did it hands-on. And at the same time, they also had this appreciation for how to design. And this is a really very interesting way of going about teaching because the students were enmeshed, they were immersed into the programs that they were studying. And like I said, we still don't do that. But I think it's really cool the way that they did it. So you always had two instructors that coming at the assignment from two different perspectives. And this created a lot of diversity in the students' understanding. All of this was really, it seems like it was really progressive, and it was. The school was started in 1919, and it went on for many years after that. And it was built in a place in Germany called Weimar. And here's actually how Weimar is spelled, W-E-I-M-A-R. They pronounce it Weimar. But in any case, by the time we got to 1923, which is 4 years into the school being about, they decided that they needed to do some kind of a showcase to show what was going on with the school. Now, this was, on the outward side of this looks like it was a really good thing. But the reason that this happened was because Walter Gropius, who was the director at the school, he was getting pressure from the Weimar city government, or state government. Weimar is like a state in Germany. So the way that the country is divided up, there's different segments, and they're really like states. So Weimar was the state that was the Bauhaus was in, and they were funding the Bauhaus. They were the ones that were giving the money to make this Bauhaus happen. But if you recall that chart, that table that I showed you, the timeline that I showed you last week, it showed that in 1919, when the Treaty of Versailles was signed, that immediately after that we started to see the progressive change in politics that started to happen, starting from 1919 and moving all the way up to 1933 when Adolf Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. Up until that time, immediately starting right after that Treaty of Versailles, there was political unrest in Germany. And we start to see the rise of nationalism and Nazism. And so the Weimar government, the state government there, was one of the first places where this nationalist, kind of conservative, backwards thinking kind of government started to work into place. And for them, demanding that the Bauhaus do a showcase of their work was their attempt really to see the Bauhaus closed. They did not like the idea of this new progressive kind of school. To them, they saw the designs that were being done by the Bauhaus as being political. Even though we know that Walter Gropius was trying very hard to take away the political aspirations of all of these different isms that he was incorporating at the school, the Bauhaus, or the Weimar government saw them as political. They saw these designs as communist, and they wanted to nix that in the bud. Just get rid of it immediately. It didn't work. The Bauhaus and this catalog that they created and the open showcase that they did had people coming not only from all parts of Germany to see this Bauhaus exhibit, but from all parts of Europe. And it got a lot of publicity. The folks at the school designed the show. They did an excellent job of segmenting off the different portions of education and explaining how the students were being educated, and did their best to showcase all of the stuff that was going on in the school. And people saw it and thought that this was the most wonderful thing that had ever happened to Germany. And they saw this as a progressive new light, a new way to get Germany out of this bad time that they were experiencing. That was how it was looked at outwardly. From the point of view of the folks in Weimar, they were pissed. They did not like the fact that the Bauhaus was actually getting good publicity. But in the meantime, the Bauhaus continued to move on. In fact, one of the instructors that came to prominence here, his name was Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, and he came to join the Bauhaus around 1923, and he was responsible for introducing a graphic program or a graphic design program to the school. Up until that time, the school had been mostly architecture and interior and industrial design. So they hadn't really focused yet on the print aspects of design, but Laszlo Moholy-Nagy changed that. Now, Laszlo Moholy-Nagy created something that he liked to call typo photos. It was an integration of typography with photography that he was doing through darkroom effects, through darkroom manipulation and airbrushing and so on. So he would incorporate photographic images together with typographic images. And so he's creating interesting montages where he is incorporating typography into photography. And he did this in a number of different exercises that he did for the school. He almost didn't get the job, but he was really the most perfect person for this position. The other person that was vying for this position of being the new type instructor, the new graphic instructor at the Bauhaus, was Theo van Doesburg. Anybody remember who Theo van Doesburg was? Who was he?
Didn't he like his work was in angles?
Yeah, he was one of our De Stijl artists. So Piet Mondrian and Theo van Doesburg were the two that created the De Stijl and neoplasticist movement. And you would think that because if you remember what neoplasticism or De Stijl was about, it was meant to be apolitical too. And so you'd think that would make him a good candidate for it. He also had some exercises where he showed sans serif typography, and he was doing some interesting things if we go back into the examples that I showed of Theo van Doesburg's stuff. However, Theo van Doesburg was, although he proclaimed all of this stuff, at the heart of him, he was really a boisterous kind of character and kind of loud. Politically loud, even though he said he was apolitical, he was kind of one of these rowdy kind of characters that could muster up a lot of emotions on the parts of the students. And he came to Weimar where the students were at, and he hung out at the school, and he came and guest lectured a lot, and he got a lot of activity for the students. He got them energized, and they became kind of really animated about it, to the point that Walter Gropius got kind of scared about this, because he thought, oh, this is a guy that is going to make these folks that are in the state government even hairier. That's going to make them harass me even more about the politics of the school, and I don't need that. I want it as apolitical as possible. So instead he turned to a Hungarian named Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, who had this really great reputation in the arts community at that time. Not only was he very well versed in typography and photography and could teach the students what he wanted them to teach as far as that nuance of it, he also practiced in a lot of different styles. So he wasn't wed to one particular style, which is exactly what he was trying to get to his students to understand. He wanted them to play with constructivism and de style and to incorporate all of those things into the work that they were doing. And so he was a perfect fit. And the other good part about this, he was friends with Theo van Doesburg. So the fact that Walter Gropius gave the job to Laszlo Moholy-Nagy rather than Theo van Doesburg, well, Theo van Doesburg couldn't make too much of a stink about it because he was friends. So they moved Laszlo Moholy-Nagy into this position, and Theo van Doesburg kind of said, okay, enough, and he went off on his merry way. Now, you'd think that everything would be sort of okay, but as I mentioned before, the Weimar state government was not happy that the Bauhaus had won that kind of battle, was seen as a positive in the light of most Europeans. And so they decided that they were just going to go against what public opinion was, and they just decided that they weren't going to renew the contracts of the teachers, any of the teachers. And so they basically fired them. They gave them pink slips. And so they said the school's closed. Sorry. And the Bauhaus, they were flummoxed. Walter Gropius was flummoxed. Fortunately, that 1923 show was so successful that the Dessau state government, I keep saying city, Dessau state government came to Walter Gropius and said, Weimar is firing you. We would love it if you came to Dessau, to our part of Germany, to our state, and if you opened a Bauhaus there. And so they did. And they even sweetened it up by telling Walter Gropius, if you come there, we'll even let you design the building. We'll build a building for you, we'll let you design it. And so that's what Walter Gropius did. He designed the Dessau Bauhaus building. And so they reconfigured the Bauhaus, 1925. One of the students that had been part of the Weimar Bauhaus, his name was Herbert Baer, he ended up coming on staff at the new Dessau Bauhaus as a teacher now, and so he ended up teaching, and this new building came about. Now this is in 1924, 1925, this is considered the height of modern architecture. It is featuring something called a curtain wall system. That means that the exterior of the building, especially that glass wall, that's there, is not holding the building up. It's not responsible for holding the roof on the building or any of the floors in between. It's just a sheathing on the outside of the building, and that's why they call it curtain walls. He designed the building so that there were different sections of the building. So there was a dormitory section, there was an administration section of the building, there was a separate section for the classrooms, and that they had bridges that crossed over from one section of the building to the next building. And then he also favored, because we're in this period where machine aesthetic is really important, he favored the idea of showing materials in their raw form. So although he used metal, he didn't use super glossy metal. He allowed the metal to rust. He allowed the concrete to have texture to it, so it wasn't so super smooth. And he also really enjoyed the idea of the space and the outdoor space integrating with the indoor space. So to him, he wanted his students to be as exposed to the outside as they possibly could, because nature is very inspirational for a lot of us. So he wanted the students to be able to see the outdoors, to be able to experience the outdoors, even if they had to be within a building setting. So the glass walls were really just a barrier between the students and the outdoor space. And there were a lot of other architects that were playing with this idea, but Walter Gropius here was really capitalizing on what he had learned under Peter Behrens. in any case, on this building, or moving forward, Herbert Baer, as I mentioned, was one of the students that came to the Bauhaus originally in Weimar as a student, and then eventually was hired to be a teacher at the school. And one of the things that Herbert Baer did to make the Dessau version of the Bauhaus even better than the Weimar version of the Bauhaus was to capitalize on the students and the skills of the students. Not only was he involved in typography and design and being another graphic design instructor, just like Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. He had been an apprentice to Laszlo Moholy-Nagy as a student or interned with him. But he also started to form relationships with the businesses that were part of Dessau at that time. And so he started a program that allowed the students, or the city, or the states, sorry, not the cities, the states, to hire the students to work for them and to build projects to rebuild Germany at this time. Now I should mention that Germany was suffering a terrible, terrible economy at this time. The 1920s for most of the world, they call it the Roaring Twenties, because it was such a booming economy. Everybody was experiencing this period of wealth, except Germany. Germany was suffering because of this Treaty of Versailles and restitutions that they ended up having to pay. And so the economy in Germany was really, really bad. And there were a lot of people that were very unemployed at this time. So there was not a lot of money available to people in order to be able to build and rebuild Germany the way that they wanted to see it rebuilt. And so for, again, Walter Gropius and the ideals of the Bauhaus, they saw this as an absolutely positive way to capitalize on using the students and letting the students get training and skills in the real world, and at the same time being able to do it at less than